How many men worked down here? About 10,000?
You know, these were not labor-intensive industries. The labor was out in the farms. Okay. These were giant machines. And you had a force of packers, but you had very few folks running the actual machinery. It was very automated. Okay. Surprisingly, this wasn't the biggest employer in town. The lumber milling industry was. Oh. Takes more men to stack a board than to load up flour.
And the lumber milling was down up above us here?
Well, the lumber milling started here. In fact, at the end of the Corps of Engineers parking lot, you can't see it now, but when we leave, take a look. There's a remnants of what was the lumber milling platform. And for the early years of development in the 1860s and into the 1870s, you saw that the lumber mills stretched out on these platforms over the river. Then one of the things DeLaBar did was encourage them to get out of here, because they really didn't use much of the water power. They were just using a small drop to run fairly inefficient water-powered lumber milling. It made much more sense to fire up a steam engine, get all those high RPMs going, throw it on a circular saw, and cut those logs like butter, instead of running an old water-powered saw, which could take half a day to saw a board. So they got much more efficient and ran all that industry upstream, starting in 1869 with the Pacific Mill at Hennepin Avenue, and then moving upstream all the way really to Anoka with lumber mills on both sides of the river. Vast amounts of production.
When did they go to the more efficient way of doing it with the steam-powered tractor saws?
Well, the steam power really kicked in big time in the 1880s. Okay. And by 1899, when they hit peak production, it's a mind-boggling amount of production. I ran the numbers on that once. Every day's production could give you a pile of 1 foot wide, 10 foot long boards, stacked flat, 26,000 feet in the air.
Gee.
So almost Mount Everest in daily production of lumber here in 1x10s.
Wood disappeared up the Rum River.
Yeah, pretty much they took northern Minnesota through in the river, cut it up, and sent it west to build the prairie towns.
Moving logs down the river, didn't that have an impact on the falls?
Sure it did. That did increase the breakup at the edge of the falls, but that's one reason by the time they really got into the heyday of the lumber milling here, they were taking them off above the falls here. It was one of the reasons DeLaBar wanted the lumber milling out of here, because it was all these logs, even the ones that escaped, were causing trouble as you got it beating up the flour milling machinery here too. So yeah, DeLaBar really hated lumber milling. He didn't like the guys, he didn't like the efficiency of it. He was an engineer, and it was just a messy business. That's Mankato stone. That's right. That's a much harder magnesium limestone than the Platteville limestone you find around here. They do have Platteville on the inside of the bridge, but the outer structure is all Mankato stone. Sure. Well, one of the things that we can see we can't normally see is right along in here. This is that side of Stewart Island we talked about from the bridge. And again, it's all covered over with riprap and that, but it has a little bit bigger bump there than it would normally, because this is incorporating the earlier island structure into it. That island had a limestone top originally. It was really quite dramatic as it peaked out at the upper level of the falls, with eagles nesting in the trees growing from there. But in 1899, they ran a little railroad out to there and quarried off the stone. So much for sacred sites.
So was it actually a stone?
Yeah, as the falls receded, it kind of receded around this little Spirit Island, leaving this limestone cap on the top. And that's one of the reasons that it was considered to have this kind of a sacred significance of the Dakota, because it had resisted this force of the waterfall and left this great dramatic cap of limestone there, and then add the nice craggly trees growing out of there, and then put some eagles' nests in there. You got a really powerful package.
I got it. He's probably not gonna like this, but I have to introduce our superintendent. Paul Lavovitz is here. He's been sitting in the warm. He's been sitting in the warm car and just got out to see us. He's the superintendent of our national park.
Okay.
He can't figure you guys out.
I'm very impressed with your toughness to be out from Philadelphia. The northernmost southern city.
So we had some questions people asked me on the way down. You know who you are.
The raceway.
The raceway.
Well,
The spillway up here.
spillway.
That's one of De La Bar's features, 1896. You can kind of see those two slanted areas over there. That's an overflow spillway. So if there's a real flood on the Mississippi, it wouldn't damage the dam and the millworks. They wanted to be able to spill the water off to the side. During the 1965 flood, if you look on the Historical Society's website, you'll see great pictures. Water was gushing down those spillways. Today they are closed. They're no longer operational. The University of Minnesota's hydraulic lab, which is on the Hennepin Island over there, is actually building into those things some sedimentation experiment. I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, I can pick up from here. Where's your voice, Chuck?
Yeah,
The National Center for Earth Surface Dynamics has as its lead partner the St. Anthony Falls Laboratory, a part of the University of Minnesota. And they study how rivers move around and they study how stream banks erode. These are very important things to know because there are multi-billion-dollar projects with dams and flood control projects that depend on this science. So one of the things they're going to be doing is planting various treatments along the side of a shore of an artificial stream that comes down through the spillway here. And then with careful instrumentation, they're able to determine erosion rates and how these things meander. It's part of the science of understanding rivers. I think after all this time, we would have rivers down, but it has to do with water, and water's mysterious stuff. So we're still learning a lot about rivers, and one of the places in the world that's best at it is right over here at the St. Anthony Falls Laboratory. So if you haven't been out to Hennepin Island in recent years, I can do it. If you haven't been out to Hennepin Island in recent years, last year they opened up Water Power Park. And they talk in great detail on Upper Hennepin Island there about the evolution of water power here at St. Anthony Falls. So I invite you, maybe not today, but some other warmer summer day, to get out right next to St. Anthony Falls there, get a great view and look at some of the markers out there in Water Power Park. So last couple of summers we've been able to have some of our park rangers out here on weekends. We're hoping to do that again this year. So you might even get to talk to some of our rangers out here about some of that fun too.
Are they still making electricity with water?
The last place that they make electricity here at St. Anthony Falls is in the 1908 Hennepin Island power plant. They're still using some of the original equipment in there. They couldn't upgrade it that much because their engineering was just that good in 1908. So that's making about 12.5 megawatts of electricity. That compares to the 500 megawatts that's coming down on these wires from the Riverside plant. So they just kind of spice it up with a little hydropower here and then send it down to power up downtown.